Hi guys, it's Sue Tetzloff here with you today in Fans of the Framework. I'm glad to be here with you on this beautiful fall day in Sault Ste. Marie. Hey, it looks like my camera needs a little bit of fixing there, a little lopsided, so sorry about that. So here we go. So today's topic, I'm following up from last week when I was answering a question that we got about what do you do about, the negative response we might get when we're working in an organization to bring about positive change. So that was a question that I answered more specifically last week about individuals. So maybe when there's an individual and you're wanting to respond one-on-one with an individual about their negative response, what's some pointers for that? So if you missed that, you want to go back to next week. Sorry, geez, we're having camera problems today. So try that again. So this week, though, we're going to focus our time on kind of a broader view about the subject of negativity and positivity and what it means to our organizations when we want to be great. So when you're on a journey to greatness in an organization, there's obviously going to be, a series of changes. You're not going to become great without making any changes. So when we're faced with changes as individuals and then collectively as an organization, we can have, obviously a wide range of responses to what's going on, okay? So while it's all intended and good to be positive, sometimes the response of individuals and groups of individuals, it's not seeming so positive, right? So we love Barbara Fredrickson's quote, I mentioned it last week, is that positivity, only whispers. Negativity screams at us, but positivity only whispers. So during these times of change, the negative responses are going to be the ones that we hear the loudest. So this is really interesting. I went online because I knew there was a statistic about this and I wanted to get it right. So the National Science Foundation, their research shows that the average person has 12 to 16,000 thoughts a day, and that 80% of them are negative, and that 95% of them are repetitive. So there's these repetitive negative thoughts that are circling in our human brains. So negativity is actually, for some reason, part of the human condition. And so to think that we won't have to deal with this or understand this or have tactics around this when we're, living, not just at work, but living, think about it, is that since it's part of the human condition, we're just faced with this. And so we have to consider what this means as, in particular, when we're working in our organizations to create positive change. You've probably also heard this quote because I've heard it several times too. We should watch our thoughts because they become our words. Watch our words because they become our actions. Watch our actions because they become our habits. Watch our habits because they become our character. And watch our character because it becomes our destiny. Okay? So watching our thoughts, and again, 12 to 16,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of them are negative. So watch our thoughts because they become our words and our actions and our character and our destiny, right? So we want a positive destiny, right? We want a positive character. We want positive actions. We want positive words. We want positive thoughts. Yet the human condition is programmed towards negative. So negativity, since it's part of the human condition, is something to be addressed in our workplaces. And so we know that this is true, that it's in a positive culture where results and people can flourish. It's in a positive home where children can flourish, right? So positivity is something that is something to strive for, to be always working for. And so this week I really want to dig into that bigger picture so that if we're thinking about a culture of positivity where people can flourish and results can flourish, we have to think about it knowing that it's part of the human condition that we're programmed to the negative, okay? So The fact is, and we just have to deal with it, negativity will exist, okay? And so we're not really in our efforts trying to annihilate it or squash it or get rid of it, right? What we need to do is change the ratio in which it's happening, okay? So we've always been big promoters of that 3-to-1 ratio, that there's 3 times more positive to every 1 negative thought, action, word, etc., right? So the idea is thinking about it in this ratio. But first, let's go back to this thing about what is negative. Because I think sometimes in our workplaces, we might perceive some things or respond to them as negative when maybe they're not, okay? So we might be elevating our perception of what's negative just because we're misperceiving what's going on. So I want to put sometimes, what's perceived as negative into 2 buckets. One bucket is conflict, and one bucket is incivility. Okay, so these are 2 big buckets or categories of negativity. And so conflict, however, is not negative or could not be negative. It could actually be something positive. So conflict is actually healthy, right? So that makes it positive. It's healthy. Conflict is really a difference of opinion, a different thought or idea in contrast to somebody else's. So conflict is just part of us thinking about things in different ways. I think it should be done this way. You think it should be done that way. We're in conflict if there's only one way it can or should be done, right? But it doesn't mean that I'm being negative because I have my way and you're being negative because you have your way. Where negativity comes in is if we as adult working professionals or humans can't figure out how to resolve conflict, right? And we can't healthfully and productively with good outcomes work through conflict. And so then it can lead to things that are negative, like incivility and bad behavior and bad feelings and bad words towards each other, when we don't have the capacity to, as individuals or groups, work through conflict in a healthy way. So I wanted to kind of set that conflict thing kind of aside as something that matters when we're talking about negativity in the workplace. We do not want to become an organization that buries conflict, that ignores conflict, that doesn't, allow conflict to happen, because that in and of itself will not be helpful to great results. It will not be helpful to a positive work culture. So conflict and having conflict resolution skills and having that ability to see and promote and have psychological safety around conflict is one of those things that matters and can be evolved and developed in a workplace culture. Okay, we can train, we can support conflict resolution. Okay. But then there's negativity that comes from things like just bad behavior, comments and words and actions that are maybe rude or uncivil or things like that, right? So conflict is healthy and is to be resolved. Incivility is to be ceased, right? And set boundaries around and called out. So when negativity is in that realm, right, it is needing some resolution. And some boundaries set and some calling out related to that. So I'm going to give an example, a real example of why sometimes incivility or rudeness and whatever is really unhealthy in a culture. And there's lots of examples of this. But this was one in my work life where we had a real chronically, persistently negative, disruptive, uncivil physician that we had to work with in our work environment. And when he would come to me, and he would be, with both barrels coming at me with, a tirade, let's just call it what it was, a tirade, a rant, very negative about a situation, an issue, a problem, or whatever, right? The problem with this whole scenario was his delivery, his behavior of how he delivered the message. And so it made it really difficult for me as a leader subjected to this, and other people subjected to it too, to, look beyond how it was packaged, look beyond on how it was delivered, to be able to hear the pearl or the gem in his message, and it was always there. There was always a pearl or gem in his message that was always there. But I had to work so god darn hard to get at the message of, what did I need to hear? What did I need to hear in his message that I needed to respond to, learn from, take into account so that I could, respond appropriately as a leader to the problem or the issue and understand it, right? So that's where negativity really, becomes problematic in a workplace, is when there's some really good things we need to hear as leaders or as teams, etc., or as, coworkers. There's really important things that we need to hear, but they're delivered in such a way and packaged in negativity that we can tune it right out. We can just shut it off and not listen at all when there might be a pearl or a gem in there, and we lose those pearls or gems that are opportunities that can improve results, make care safer, etc., because of how it was packaged in negativity. So that's where negativity can be really, really damaging. And that's the kind of negativity we need to kind of figure out how to best deal with and respond to, because again, we want to get to great results. And we don't want to just tune out negativity and how things are packaged when there might be some gems in there. And also, what we really want is people to be able to speak up, right? Be able to speak up about issues, problems, that they don't like something, that they're concerned about something, that they're worried about something, whatever. And that we want people to have the ability to speak up when they're having those feelings. And when they do, that can be perceived by those of us on the receiving end as negativity. But again, if it's packaged in a way of just constructive feedback and speaking up, that's not negative. But sometimes the emotion gets in, people, again, package it in a way that may not be heard, and because that it rings that negativity bell, and then we totally tune out. So what we really desire, right? I'm going to read this because I think this is a great mantra or desire or vision for what we want for our work cultures, okay? And I might repeat it twice because I really, really want you to hear it. We desire a culture of psychological safety where people can speak up without incivility or blame, where they can be free to disagree. They can be free to speak up when they perceive something is wrong. They can speak up and ask questions when they don't understand. And they can speak up and feel free to share their feelings when they don't like something, okay? So having the ability in a culture to speak up when we disagree, speak up when we perceive something is wrong, speak up when we don't understand, speak up when we don't like something, having the psychological safety in a culture to be able to speak up without incivility, without blame, right? This is not negativity. This is healthy culture. This is where great results can flourish, okay? So that's what we desire. What we also desire is a new ratio between how much is negative and how much is positive in our cultures, okay? So we talk a lot about that 3-to-1 ratio. I hinted at it earlier, even in this video, that we're really looking for that 3-to-1 ratio. So because negativity is going to happen because it's there, because it's part of the human condition, because, people are human. It's going to happen. We need to have a new ratio between what's positive and what's negative so that we can have a culture in which results and people can flourish. So we want 3 times more positive conversation and, healthy conflict and teamwork and collaboration and those kind of things. We want 3 times more positive to every one time that things that are perceived as negative are present in our work experience, okay? And so I want you to think about this. It is in healthy environments and relationships that negativity can have a less of an impact, a negative impact. So when we have a healthy environment, healthy relationships, when negativity does come up, it's not so bad because we have all this other positive. It's kind of like your bank account. If you've built up this huge bank account, say it's positivity, we have this big positivity bank account, then when we have these withdrawals, right? When we have these expenses come up, then it doesn't hit us so hard, right? We're prepared for it. It doesn't have such a negative impact. You can also think about this in terms of our health, right? So yeah, we want to eat right and healthy, and more fruits, more vegetables, clean eating and all of that, right? Less sugar, etc. So there's all these things that are positive for our bodies in the way that we eat, right? However, we're human, right? And humans, sometimes we like things that maybe aren't so good for us that we put into our bodies, right? So we're human. And so, but again, it's about this ratio. That is it 3-to-1, 3 times more healthy food to everyone that's not, right? Isn't that going to be better than if it's 1-to-1, 1 positive or 1 negative, right? So the better we can bump this ratio of positive to negative in our bodies, in our health, in our relationships, in our work cultures, then we're going to be able to thrive, right? So that's what we really want, is to bump up this ratio, okay? So I want to bring up maybe some tactics, because you're probably thinking, okay, Sue, yeah, I get it. We need more positivity. We're really not trying to totally abolish negativity because it's impossible. It's real, and there's some very healthy things like conflict that really aren't negative. And that we need people to feel safe to speak up, even if maybe they don't have the emotional intelligence to package this in a way that's anything but negative, okay? So we know that we're gonna need some tactics here to bump up that 3-to-1 ratio, because 80% of our 16,000 thoughts a day are negative. We got a lot of work to do to bump up the 3-to-1 ratio, right? So we do. So we have to be very proactive and intentional. We love that quote, if we trust a chance, we must abide by the results of chance. So we cannot leave your positive ratio to chance, because if we leave it to chance, what's gonna win? Negativity. 16,000 thoughts a day, 80% of them are negative. So if we leave positivity to chance, negativity will win in our work cultures, in our relationships, and even in our bodies, right? In our health. So what can we do as a leader? What's our role? What can we do to bump up the positivity ratio? Well, I'm going to give you some things that, we've probably talked about before in many of these live events. So these aren't going to be new to you, but I'm going to package them as kind of your, starter action plan, that if you're not doing some of these things, or if you are, maybe you can elevate them in frequency or sincerity or an impact, so that they really spark up that positivity ratio in your work environment. So number 1 is complimenting, and I don't mean just, great job today, you're a rock star, generic complimenting. I mean that powerful stuff where we're really giving sincere, impactful compliments. So what behavior or action are we complimenting? What's the positive impact of that behavior? And what standard is that upholding? So that 1, 2, 3 powerful outline of a compliment is something that we can all do more of. And don't just reserve your compliments for above and beyond behavior or contributions or actions. Compliment people for trying, for, working through that new change, for giving it a go, right? Compliment people for trying to embrace the change that's going on around them. So don't just wait till they've mastered it and compliment them for mastering it. Compliment them along the way for trying, for making efforts, for making forward movement, okay? That will keep them moving forward and give them positive reinforcement. So as leaders, and if we get good at doing this as leaders, guess what? We role model this for employees all around us to do the same with each other, okay? So encourage it and role model it with each other. Very powerful compliments that go beyond that generic, great job today, etc. Also, what we can also do as leaders is one of the positive communication standards and uphold that one, which is no blaming and no managing down. We see this in leadership ranks when we hear things like employees really love their frontline leaders but don't so much like administration. Well, guess what? There's a high likelihood that frontline leaders then are blaming or managing down. That's negativity, guys, blaming, managing down. And if we as leaders are doing that, and we know it happens, right? Even the most positive leaders, we're going to slip into those moments of negativity where we don't, again, we have a difference of opinion. We have a different idea about what the answer should be, or the approach should be, or the tactics should be, or the strategy should be. Or maybe a decision was made and we would have decided something different. And so we end up blaming or managing down others in the organization, other leaders, administration, providers, or whatever, for what we perceive is not right. And then when we hold audience with our employees, guess what? We're role modeling that it's okay to blame and it's okay to manage down. That as leaders we do it, and so you can too. So that is not going to help your positivity ratio. In fact, it's going to be on that other side, and it's going to be on the negativity side of the 3-to-1 positivity ratio. The other thing we can do is audit our communications for how we frame things in either a positive or negative way. And what I mean by that is, I'll give an example. I had a leader meet with me a few years ago, and she said to me, "Oh my God, I just lead a department that's just full of negativity. I mean, negativity rules. Every day there's just, negativity, just examples of it in behaviors and actions in our workplace. And I'm the leader of this, right?" And so I had to say to her, "What's your role in this? What's your role in this? Are you leading with positivity or negativity? Negativity or positivity?" And she said, I don't know. And so one challenge that I gave her was to audit her last 10 emails. And I said, look at your last 10 communications that you sent out to your staff, whether it was the meeting minutes for the staff meeting, whether it was, a notice about, a change in policy or practice, or a reminder on any email that she sent out to her staff in the last 10 emails. And I asked her to look at it and see whether it was framed in the negative or the positive. So an example of something framed in the negative would be, here's a reminder that if you don't go to HR and fill out this paperwork before October 31st, then your health insurance benefits will not be renewed next year. That's framed all in the negative. When it could have been framed in the positive, here's a reminder to make sure that you sign your paperwork by October 31st so that indeed your insurance can be renewed for next year. The same message, right? One's framed in the negative, one's framed in the positive. And I can tell you that if you notice in your written communication that you are framing your written words in the negative, there is almost 100% chance that you're framing your verbal communication in the negative as well. And so when you're editing any communication that goes out, Don't just look for typos and those kind of things. Also look for, did I frame this in the positive or the negative, and fix that just like you'd fix a typo, okay? Because when you're going through that exercise of editing and reframing statements that are negative into the positive, if you don't do this, then this won't happen. If you do this, this will happen. When you make that switch in your written communication, you're retraining your brain so that your verbal communication also comes out positive. And so this leader didn't even realize how she was contributing to the negative culture in her work environment through her verbal and written communication skills. And it was through this written communication skills she was able to audit and catch herself in this kind of trap of negativity herself. Also rounding, we talk about, developing relationships. And I mentioned that when we have positive relationships, then negativity won't have such a bad impact when it does surface, and it will, right? Because even the most positive people will slip into periods of negativity. And so building relationships, we can't emphasize this enough, is proactively always be working to know your people, build relationships with them, fill those relationship bank accounts so that if something negative does pop up in your communication and interactions with each other, it doesn't have such a detrimental impact because you've got, a nice bank account of positivity in that relationship. Also, we advocate the practice of saying, seeing, hearing something positive frequently throughout the workday. When our brains, hear, see, experience something positive, these hormones get released in our bodies. Different chemicals are released and stimulate parts of our brain that are really good for us. They help communication, critical thinking, and collaboration. So positivity is really good to be sparked, and it can be sparked by just hearing, saying, or seeing something positive. And so here's an opportunity where it can be so simple to have routines or habits throughout the workday that are intentionally there, that are really like not just left to chance, they're intentional to build positivity. So, one thing we always recommend for any meeting or team meeting is to start the meeting with positivity. Just doing some quick little exercise of saying, hearing, or seeing something positive. When I look at some of our partner organizations that are faith-based organizations, and they might start each meeting with a prayer or with a some sort of positive affirmation, that sparks the brain and these chemicals in our bodies for positivity, and this is good for us and good for our cultures as well. So we can do this at huddles, we can do this at shift report, we can do this at meetings. We can have positivity huddles throughout our day, and this will help keep that positivity ratio up. Also, we like to promote celebration, right? So celebrating often and not just waiting till you've hit a big result or had the completion of a change or a project before you celebrate, but celebrating along the way. So celebration is a very positive event. And so maybe you as a leader, you go, well, I'm not really a party person and whatever, but you have people that work for you probably or with you that would be, really glad to be your chief party officer. You have people that might be with you that can be your chief positivity officers. So, really start to think about, maybe if this isn't a predominant thing, in your world that you're really good at yourself, is maybe you need to even delegate these things and promote people to be your chief party and celebration and positivity officers in your workplace. And they can really own that 3-to-1 ratio and help you if you're struggling yourself as a leader with this. So we have to be intentional. Like, we can't just leave it to chance. And these are just a few ideas. You can probably come up with more. I just thought of another one. And I know several of our partners have done this, where they've done a 3 good things campaign that for 2 weeks, 2 solid weeks at the end of every shift, every employee, every doctor writes down 3 good things that happened in their shift, and they put it into, a bucket. And then each week, those are summarized of all the good things that happen at work. And when we start to journal about the 3 good things, or even write and capture those 3 good things that happened in our day, in our shift, it trains us the next shift to look for positive things, because we know we're going to have to write them down. And now we can start looking for it, because it is all around us, folks. What we do in healthcare is very positive. We're making a positive difference every day in the lives of our communities and our people. And so again, that positivity is only whispering at us, and we need to get megaphones, right? We need to just yell that out, what's going on that's positive, because what usually catches our attention is negativity, right? It screams at us. It's easier to see, and we're trained that way in healthcare. We know we're trained that way. As leaders, we're trained to look for what's going wrong, problems that need to be fixed. As healthcare providers, we look for what's wrong with patients so that we can fix it. And so we're always looking for what's wrong or negative so that we can fix it. And so it's our turn, for our own sake and our own health and our own organization's success and its results, to start intentionally looking for positive, right? And doing things that bumps up that 3-to-1 ratio. So again, I hope you've enjoyed today's message regarding creating a culture in which people and results can flourish, and the role of positivity in that, and the role of leaders in that. I just wanted to end this with a little reminder that we have ongoing open enrollment in our greatness course. It first started out early in 2019 as a nurse leader greatness course, as our beta test group, and now that is open to leaders of all kinds in healthcare. It is a 9-month experience where you will have access to Jane and I as your mentors and coaches and trainers. It goes beyond just learning. We strategize together, we create plans together, we figure out how to bring those things alive in your specific work environments. And so it's like a mini partnership. So instead of an entire organization in partnership with us to create great results, this is for individual leaders and their individual departments to experience that same sort of transformation and have access to our coaching and strategizing specifically to the world where they work and lead, okay? And so if you're interested in that, you can go to our website, capstoneleadership.net, and there's a place there that, there is more information on the greatness course, how it's laid out over 2 phases, over 9 months, what's all included in that. And then also there's a place there on our website where you could book a call with us and talk about whether you'd be a good fit for this greatness course. And we would love to have you join us, and we would love to help you transform your individual department or division in healthcare through the work of the greatness course and the magic that lies there in our framework, and getting that framework in place, working in your specific department. So I wanted to mention that we are now open to all sorts of healthcare leaders, not just nursing leaders, and there is no official start date. We have the ability to bring each person on demand when they're ready. And so many people I know are looking ahead to the January new year and being ready and wanting transformation for their individual leadership and their departments that they lead. And so we would actually encourage you to start before the new year so that you can get a bit of phase 1 done before that new year starts, and that the assessment and planning work has been done. But we always say the best time to start is right now. Just start. When you're ready, just start anytime. And so glad to have you with me here today. Sorry about the wobbling of the camera at the beginning, but here we got through it, and I hope the message resonated and that you had some takeaways. Have a great rest of your week.